Hey everyone, it's Allie, and if you know anything about me, you know one of my favorite farming methods in PoE 1, and well, it is now finally viable to do in PoE 2. That is right, the patented Allie Essence Farming Guide is finally making its way over to this game as well, and I am super excited to talk about it. With all the changes that have happened in 0.3, essences have finally gone mainstream and are actively something that people are going and buying to use for crafting. While sure, they had some niche uses in Season 1 and Season 2 with the new Abyss Omens, my god, crafting is very much back. So, with that said, there is quite a demand for them, and well, we are here to sell the shovels to all the crafters. With the new asynchronous trading, essence farming has been made significantly easier because all of it completely relied on using tablets and towers, and while that does seem scary and annoying, I promise you, it's going to be really simple. Let's get into it. Let's discuss everything you need to know and, well, be on your way to making quite a lot of money. Now, we should first start off by discussing what you're going to be doing with your Atlas tree. Luckily, it's going to be really simple. All you're going to do is just come over to the bottom right of the tree and just pick up every single essence related node, with the only thing to mention being that for the essence type selector, you want to pick up yourself energetic resonance, as these essences are going to be worth significantly more than the other ones. Outside that, just make sure you pick up yourself ecological shift to get more essences, and then the rest of your tree can just be whatever you want to. I personally chose to pick up unstable energies along with all the rogue exile nodes, as if a rogue exile spawns next to an abyss, it turns into a lich, which will drop a guaranteed heart of the well, which is worth about a divine or so. I also picked up the tablet nodes, as these will just make your maps a little bit juicier and they're kind of nice. But what you instead could do is simply come over to the bottom left of the tree instead, pick up yourself places of worship and seasonal blessing, and then if you happen to get acceleration shrine in your map, you're going to be able to complete that map significantly faster. It's up to you on what you want to do with your last 20 or so points. And when it comes to the mechanic trees, you can do literally whatever you want to here. You can choose to interact with your rituals and breaches and whatnot, or you just completely ignore them, but it's up to you on what you want to do there. The other final thing to mention is going to be the boss tree at the top, and here you're going to want at a minimum 6 points, but you're going to ideally need to grab yourself 8 points, as this will allow us to pick up Crystal Realm, and given every single map we're going to be doing for the strategy is going to be a map with a map boss inside of it, this is basically just 25% more currency at all times. At the same time, Organized Forces is also going to be amazing for the same reason, as this will sometimes give you level 20 gems, which are worth about a div each, and your maps are overall just going to be juicier. From there, let's discuss what we're going to be doing for a mapping setup along with tablets and towers. For maps, I simply just alked everything that was white, and then augmented and regaled everything to at least a 3 mod T15. I then came over to PoE.re, which will be linked in the description below, and made myself a regix of all the bad map mods, took all my maps, shoved them into a tab, pasted the regix in here, and ran every map that showed up. Whatever maps don't end up lighting up like this, you can simply just go over to Agni and just shove them into here for 3 exalted each, and they will pretty easily over time sell, meaning you get to make a little bit of money from all of your bricks. You're going to be more than self-sustaining all of your T15 maps, so you never have to worry about it, so you can have a pretty demanding regix to make sure you don't run any sort of bad map mods like temp chains or chilled ground that are just going to be annoying. As for the tablets for this setup, there's going to be 2 specific ones we're going to be on the lookout for. They're going to be the bread and butter of this whole strategy. First off, you're going to need to go grab yourself 1 or 2 grand plans. These are going to allow you to skip around as you please between any of the nodes in a given tower, and these are going to be very important as they're going to allow us to go from one tower directly to another without touching any of the nodes between them, which are going to be super juicy and kind of a waste for us to do them ahead of time. You're not going to need many of these, and we're going to discuss exactly when you would want to use one. And then on top of that, our actual main profit is going to be from overseer tablets that specifically have the guaranteed essence if a map has a map boss in it mod. These are going to be relatively cheap, and you're going to want to grab yourself at least 6 or 9 or so of these to begin with, and you might as well go and try to roll all of your own tablets to see if you get these rolls, but they are quite rare, so expect to have to pretty much buy all of them. So once you have your tablets, it's time to find a location for us to set up. What you're going to want to do is find a location on your atlas that you haven't really touched and you haven't done many maps in that has at least 2 towers like this that are relatively close to each other with a really big overlap. Ideally, you want to find a location like this where you have 3 towers nearby if possible. And what you're going to end up finding with the strategy is that this is actually pretty common, and you're going to be able to set up quite a lot of maps if you choose to. You ideally don't want to find a location like this where there's basically just 1 tower with some pretty garbage overlap, as this would be a pretty massive waste of money. From there, let's say you find a location like this, which is fairly common. What we would do is go do this tower, for example, with a 6 mod tier 15 map as that would then unlock 3 tablet slots in your tower. And given that we did a tier 15 map as the map for the tower, we're then going to have 100% more maps be affected by the tablets that we're going to put in, giving us significantly better coverage. What our goal here would be, specifically in this tower, is we would put in 1 grand plan along with 2 overseer tablets, and then each of those tablets are going to make, let's say, 12 of the maps within the circle all have guaranteed bosses on them. Because you use 2 tablets, that means every single node that has a boss is now going to have 2 guaranteed essences. And with that grand plan, I would now be able to go from this tower directly to this tower without wasting any of these nodes along the way, and then do the same thing where I'd complete it with a T15 6 mod map. And from there, because there's no other towers within radius of this, I would not use another grand plan here, and I would just simply put in 3 overseer tablets, then make 24 nodes within that tower circle, have map bosses on it. And well, given that this tower made some of these nodes already have map bosses, that's just going to give you 3 additional essences in each of these nodes. In my case, there happened to be another tower over here. So before I went and ran this tower, I grand planned down here as well. This one wasn't in range, so I had to go to this node and then come over here. And I set the same thing up again here, giving me a quadruple overlap in some of these areas. But because I also had another tower here, I chose to put another grand plan here to be able to immediately jump to this one to also set this up without doing any of the nodes around here, giving me a pretty nice triple overlap here and a bunch of double overlaps. Because I end up having another tower here, I then ended up doing another grand plan to be able to get here without wasting everything, giving me another triple overlap. Do you see what I'm trying to show you here? Basically, you're trying to use grand plans to get yourself triple overlaps without wasting time. And if you have a tower like this that doesn't really have another one for you to be able to jump to, you simply just shove 3 overseer tablets in there and just stop with that. The point is, you can kind of continue like this for quite a while, and you just set up whatever you personally feel comfortable with and whatever you're willing to expend as your starting budget, as it does start adding up, but you're more than going to be making all of your currency back and more once everything is set up. Now, once all tower shenanigans are done, let's discuss how exactly we'll be doing our maps. Your only goal inside each map you go into is just kill all the essence monsters and kill the boss, because the boss is going to be where the majority of your map sustain is going to come from. You're going to want to bring a stack of vol orbs with you into every map you do, because you can use them to modify the essence monsters, either re-rolling the essences, adding more, or upgrading them into higher tiers. The way you're going to want to use these vol orbs is going to have a pretty simplistic order. First off, if you ever see a greater essence of battle on a monster, no matter what, no matter anything else, you're always going to be using a vol orb in hopes that it gets turned into a perfect essence of battle, which is currently the most expensive by far. Even if you fail 20 of these in a row, just hitting 1 every 25 or so will guarantee that you make profit from all those vol orbs that you use. The same could be true about greater essences of sorcery, although the perfect essence version of it isn't worth that much more, but is still on average worthwhile to do it every time you see it. Outside of always using a vol orb in those 2 cases, if you ever see an essence monster have a perfect essence on it, whether it has 1 or 2 or however many, as long as it doesn't also have a perfect essence of battle or sorcery, you're always going to vol orb it in the hopes that it turns into one of the corruption exclusive essences, which are also worth a lot of money. Outside of that, the only other rule to keep in mind is you just want to use vol orbs to re-roll essence stacks. As long as there's 3 or 4 or 5 or more essences on enemy, you don't want to bother if there's only 1, in the hopes that you end up getting yourself either a greater essence of haste, ruin, or enhancement onto the essence. If the essence monster already happens to have one of those essences on there, it's probably not worth re-rolling it. But if it doesn't have haste or ruin or enhancements, feel free to just re-roll it. All this is also going to be mentioned in the description below if you want a written version of all this to go through, but I promise you it's a really simple priority order, and once you do maybe 5 or 6 maps, you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. Now finally, let's discuss what the profits are going to look like from the strategy. Every single essence you see here is what I gathered for the sample size of this video. I lost track of exactly how many maps I did. I want to say it's about 120 or so. Every single green dot that you currently see is a map I ended up doing for the sample size of the strategy. I did about 6 towers worth of total maps, and to me that feels about 120-ish maps, but you're free to judge if that number is too high or too low. The point is, we farmed a lot of essences, but the sad part is most of these are basically worth nothing. What you could do to very quickly see which essences are worth something and which ones aren't is to simply just come over to the essence portion of PoE 2 Ninja, where you can see the current prices of everything, and most importantly, see the volume per hour to know how accurate those prices are. For example, yeah, lesser essences of ruin are worth 60 each, but only 1.9 of them get bought an hour, meaning meaning this is kind of junk. The point is, if you see an essence be bought quite a bit, if it has a high volume, it's probably pretty close to the exact price of it, so we're simply going to be basing it off of that. If we want to look at all these essences, I quickly went through and wrote down how much of each essence I had for the ones that are at least going to basically instantaneously sell. I said about 200C for everything else here, which is probably well over half the essences. This number might be a little bit higher, but I feel like 200C or so is about correct. If you even manage to sell them in general, that's up to you to figure out if you're going to bother with it or not, as they're very low volume. But in total, I managed to farm 2,327 chaos worth of essences, or 38.7 divine in total. I also ended up getting some around 10 div and random drops. I know I got over 5 raw div during the strategy, and I did get quite a lot of currency. I believe I started with 5 div when I started this, but as I kept getting more omens and other pieces, I just kept selling them. Actually, at one point, I had 25 div sitting here that I did not spend on anything until we decided to do some more build testing. But the point is, I made quite a lot of money in just passive drops, and I think it's a little bit more than 10 div, but for simplicity's, let's just say I got 10 div in total of other random stuff. That means in total I made 48.7 div, or 24.3 chaos per map, and it took me about 5 div or so in tablets and vol orbs to be able to get the strategy done. That means if we want to subtract that, I made 43.7 div in actual revenue, or 21.8 chaos per map. I was doing about 5-minute maps. Sometimes they were faster, sometimes they were like 2-minute maps, depending on the layout. Sometimes it took a little bit longer, but I feel like 5-minute maps is a pretty good estimate for most people, meaning in total, we were making 262 chaos per hour, or 4.4 div. I honestly think that's pretty darn good, given the strategy is really simple. You're just killing essences, and they really don't take that much effort to do, and you don't really have to pay that much attention. And given that everything can just be sold at currency exchange pretty quickly, and we're only looking at the things that sell in high volume, so we know for certain that all that just immediately gets to go, this strategy is a banger. I've had so much fun with it over the past 2 days or so while I was collecting this data, and I'm probably going to do a little bit more of it because it's really simple to do. This strategy is going to allow me to afford my headhunter, so I had a lot of fun with it, and with the headhunter, it's only going to be more fun given you're killing rares really quickly, meaning you have a lot of headhunter buffs active at all times. If you have any questions on anything we discussed here, do feel free to leave a comment in the comments below, and I'd be more than happy to help you or discuss any of this with you further, or feel free to come on my Twitch and ask me any of your questions there as well. If you also want to come and just be a part of our community and hang out with other kitties, I do recommend for you to come by our Twitch chat and hang out with everyone there, or our Discord, or wherever you prefer to. With all that said, kitties, I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you have fun making some money off of some essences, and I'll see you all in the next video.